We are very, very honored to have with us today Mrs. Jyotsna Brar, the Chief Education Consultant Learned, former Principal, Wellams Girls School, Dehradun, and she will be talking to us today and delivering the Tehrim Das Memorial Lecture. As is traditional, we will begin the program with the lighting of the lamp, followed by a floral welcome. May I invite our President, Ms. Zareen Vikaji, Dr. Amrita Das, and our guest of honor, Mrs. Jyotsna Brar, to light the traditional lamp. I would request our President, Ms. Zareen Vikaji, to please welcome our guest with the bouquet of flowers. Amrita, I think you should stand with them. And now to deliver the formal welcome address, may I invite the President of the Ahmed Educational Foundation, Ms. Zareen Vikaji.
Good morning, everyone. On behalf of our Girls Degree College and the Institute for Career Studies, it is my proud privilege to welcome the chief guest of the morning, Mrs. Jyotsna Brar, ex-principal of Welham Girls High School. She has several other achievements to her name. I leave that to the person introducing her to enumerate for you. We are so happy to have you. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation and being here in our midst today. Uh, Traditionally, as a welcome, I always introduce how Amrita, the founder director of the ICS, or the Institute for Career Studies, goes about choosing her guests for the Tehrim Das Memorial. It is a very sacred thing for her, a very dear thing for her, and for all of us. My family, when I tell them I'm going to go shopping for fruit, get very happy. The reason they get very happy is because I have an uncanny knack of picking the best fruit. So they know at least that they will be eating tasty, delicious, seasonal fruit. When Amrita goes shopping for chief guests, she has the very same knack, and, and she inevitably goes and pulls out, I don't know, as I have said so often, from that magical hat of hers, one chief guest after another who leave us awestruck, impressed, happy. And I'm sure that Mrs. Brar will be exactly that, such a chief guest. So, a very warm welcome to you. We are very happy to have you here. I am also happy to welcome our other guests, our faculty, members of the ICS team, of the degree college faculty, students, other guests who are present. It is a pleasure having you here with us. And without taking any further time, do enjoy the program. And I'm sure the very enlightening speech that is in store for you. Thank you.
The Tehrim Das Memorial Lecture is in memory of an outstanding woman who made a deep impact on the lives of all whom she met and the society in which she lived. It is a great honor and privilege to read for the young people here a small bio of, not a bio really, the achievements of Tehrim Das. Tehrim Das was born on May 9th, 1935 and left us on June 25, 2014. She started her lifelong voluntary social work as a young member of the YWCA in Delhi at the age of 15, attending leadership training programs and workshops on education, women in development, conducted by the YWCA of India in Delhi, enhanced her understanding of these issues. She married Amarjit Kumar Das, IP, in 1954 until her husband's retirement as the first Director General of Police of Uttar Pradesh. She devoted herself to welfare work for the families of policemen as secretary and then president of the Police Welfare Association, which had 70 centers across the state. From 1975 to 1980, Mrs. Das was the founder, executive director of the Center for Women's Studies and Development of the Isabella Thoburn College, which is in Lucknow, a member of the consortium of 9 centers under the Asian Women's Institute. During this time, the Center for Women's Studies and Development established an integrated rural development project under which rural women were provided literacy and education, healthcare services, sanitation and hygiene, and were educated about their rights. She participated in several workshops organized by the Asian Women's Institute in Penang in Malaysia, Singapore, Bangkok, Hong Kong, Seoul, and Tokyo, where she presented papers on themes relating to women's empowerment. As president of the Lucknow YWCA, she was instrumental in expanding its rural development project. She also established the Cheshire Homes in Lucknow and was the founder president of it for 8 years. She served as the chairperson of Mother Teresa's co workers who facilitated the missionaries of charity in Lucknow with the management of 3 homes for destitute and terminally ill persons, a TB hospital, and a leprosy center. She was successful in getting 30 acres of land for the project with the support of the government. This is the largest piece of land the missionaries of charity have in the world for their noble work. Mrs. Das was president of the Family Planning Association of India, Lucknow, for 6 years and vice president of a large rural project known as NIRFAD, which is Naujheel Integrated Rural Project for Health and Development in Mathura, where 118 villages are being developed by this NGO. She was also on the management committees of the All India Women's Conference, the National Council for Women, and Awadh Girls Degree College. A keen sportswoman, she won prizes for cricket, badminton, tennis, and table tennis. She was the president of the UP Women's Cricket Association in the 1980s. She also enjoyed playing the piano and was a gifted singer. I would now like to invite Dr. Amrita Das, her daughter, to introduce to us the speaker of the day, Mrs. Jyotsna Bal.
President of ATDC, Sareen Vikaji, our chief guest, Mrs. Jyotsna Brar, Professor Nishi Pandey, Professor Beena Rai, members of this august audience of friends of the family, faculty members of ATDC, students of ATDC. A warm welcome once again to all of you for this very, very special occasion, the yearly Tehrim Das Memorial Lecture. It's an immense pleasure to introduce Mrs. Jyotsna Brar, whom I admire and hold in the highest esteem as a renowned educationist, inspiring teacher, and visionary educational leader. She served as the principal of the Wellam Girls School, Dehradun, for 16 years. She took charge in 2000 AD and led Wellam Girls into the 21st century. And not just the 21st century with a kind of education that had existed for years, but I would say she was one of the forerunners of the new education policy that focused on student centered education, collaborative, all round development of students. And it is no wonder then that under her leadership, not only did Vellum stand first in the country for board results, but it topped the education world ranking among girls' boarding schools in India. Mrs. Brar has conducted workshops and seminars in various institutions and forums in India and overseas on topics that have ranged from motivation and leadership, multiple intelligences, and classroom methods to assessment and evaluation. She is also the founder principal of the Rajmata Krishnapari Girls Residential Schools in Jodhpur, now a member of the Indian Public Schools Conference. So she laid the foundation for it. Mrs. Brar has been advisor to the ISC and CBSE boards and is presently on the governing councils of two establishments for persons with disabilities. She is also on the academics committee of the Himjyoti School, Dehradun, a residential school for girls from economically weaker sections and families. The values close to our heart include integrity, empathy for the weakest, and simple, sustainable living. It was an immense privilege to have the opportunity to meet Mrs. Brar's mother, Mrs. Pandit, on several occasions during my visits to Wellam Girls School. And I was deeply inspired by her, especially when she told me that as a young girl, she had met Mahatma Gandhi. And as he was passing by, she was in South India, she stepped forward and said, Namaste, Gandhiji. And he stopped by She was so inspired by him that later on, through her college years, she played a very important role as a student in the freedom movement. She took to wearing khadi. And why I say this is that at any stage of our lives, and students, I say this to you, you could really make a contribution to nation building in your own unique ways. It's never too late. And the country needs you, your, I would say, valuable contribution. So I take this opportunity of remembering Mummy and Mrs. Pandit with love and respect. And I pay homage to all mothers and grandmothers who make such a difference to our lives. And I'd like to, for all of us, to remember them in our hearts and minds with grateful thanks. And I conclude with these words: I can fly higher than an eagle, for you are the wind beneath my wings. I want you to know I would be nothing without you. I now invite Mrs. Brar to deliver her keynote address, the annual Tehrim Das Memorial Lecture. We are so privileged to have you. We look forward to hearing you, Mrs. Brar.
Good morning, Mrs. Zareem Bikaji, Professor Nishi Pandey, Professor Beena Rai, members of the governing body of the Awadh Girls Degree College, the team from the Institute for Career Studies, the faculty, students, alumni of the college, and eminent citizens of Lucknow. I'm deeply honored and I'm very moved to be invited to deliver the Tehrim Das Memorial Lecture this year. And I thank you for welcoming me to the college and indeed to Lucknow. Most especially, I would like to extend my deep gratitude to Dr. Amrita Das, Ms. Kavita Das, and Mr. Ajit Das for reposing faith in me and believing that my words today may actually live up to the high ideals and values that their mother embodied in her life. I checked up the meaning of the word Tehreem. It roughly translates as respect. I pay my respects to her today. The Awadh Girls Degree College, or more appropriately, the Awadh Girls PG College, has been an iconic institution for well over half a century. I have a memory of coming to the corridors of the erstwhile Loreto College in 1966 when I was still in school. The alumni of the college have done their alma mater proud over these decades, and they've taken their rightful place in society. I truly feel very privileged to be here this morning. The motto of the college, knowledge and light, is a perfect distillation of the value of education. The founders and the members of the Awadh Education Society deserve our gratitude, for we all know the transformative ripple effect of educating girls and women. Mrs. Tehreem Das's close involvement with the management of this college for many years was an extension of her desire to contribute to social transformation. And I humbly salute her memory today. I feel blessed that I had an opportunity to meet Mrs. Tehrim Das on many occasions and to get to know her through Dr. Amrita Das, my friend. Anyone who knew her would remember her as a very smiling sort of person. She exuded a sense of being comforting. She would chuckle at jokes and help others to laugh and to relax. There was something to think about in this. I felt that she could be this way because she was very strong and comfortable within herself. And she didn't think of herself, she could focus on others. That was her great strength. Because people who live a self centric life, they are very tense. They're consumed all the time by wanting more for themselves, by comparing themselves with others, by weighing their aspirations and their achievements. Whereas those who set a wider focus on life, those who take real trouble for other people, those who have a concern for the environment, for plants and animals, for those who attempt to understand and work with others different from themselves, they find a greater meaning in life and they develop the strength of compassion. Mrs. Tehrim Das was my ideal of a compassionate person. And from her life, we can learn how she embodied strength. The first step to developing internal strength is to recognize what makes us feel worthy and then to develop that quality. To take an example from Mrs. Das's life, she began her voluntary social work at the young age of 15 with the YWCA. Now, one can imagine her as a teenager recognizing her own basic nature as a people's person and then deciding to put it into action. She didn't stop here. She understood her strengths and then she went on to develop them by attending a lot of training sessions, leadership workshops, reading up more and more, and from a very young age, so that she could use it effectively and meaningfully for others throughout her life, while giving happiness to herself too. This is, there's a message in this for younger people. She also clearly understood that education is the most valuable gift of all. It was no wonder that she aligned herself with the cause of education. She touched so many lives in so many ways. And over the decades, she reached out to bring knowledge to hundreds of families. By founding and directing the Center for Women's Studies and Development at IT College, she showed her desire to get a better understanding of the needs of people other than ourselves. By getting the center to focus on making rural women feel more empowered, she made them stronger. When I asked Dr. Amrita Das what she felt I could speak about today, she simply said, anything to inspire the girls. And to be honest, that left me feeling extremely nervous and confused. Consequently, for these last few weeks, I have agonized over what to say to you all, which is relevant, which is meaningful, most of all, not boring. I have wondered why a 70-year-old person can make sense to those just in their 20s. All the students, the young teachers here, they're looking forward to their lives ahead. I am looking back at the life I have lived and the lessons I have learned. But I believe that somewhere on this timeline of your forward gaze and my backward look, our lives are touching today. As a kind of intersection of your aspirations, maybe my experience, and that's where we may be able to find some sort of meaning. I would like to say that I am what I am today, or what I became even when I was a young person like you, because of 3 or 4 things. Number one, I had a childhood in which we were not rich. I came from an army family, and I think not having too much money makes you really strong. It teaches you economy. It teaches you not to waste your resources. And I am so grateful to my parents for keeping us somewhere there. But I'm equally grateful to them because I was very rich in another aspect of my life. I was educationally very, very rich. I came from a family which just believed in books and reading and discussion and studies. And not just studies from those books, but beyond. I was very fortunate to have so much of education in my family. So I was very rich in one way, but not rich in the technical sense. The third great thing which made me what I am was the Indian Army. I came from an army home. I married an army man. I remained pan-Indian. When people would ask me, where are you from? Until today, when they ask me, where are you from? I say, I'm from everywhere. I was born in Tamil Nadu. My mother was born in Patna. My children were born in Maharashtra and what is today Jharkhand. And with all this, we become truly secular in the best sense of the word. And we learn through the army that there's no one senior, no one junior. The bullet finds anybody. So you just got to be all together. And I think these influences were my real education. Because education is not what we get in the classroom, education is what we get in life. Moreover, I want to really apologize, particularly to all the girls here today, because you are being subjected to a talk. We are all living in the world of WhatsApp memes. Every morning, as soon as people wake up, they pick up their phones and they're flooded with pictures, with videos, and all of it is life gyan. We all read brilliant quotations with background music and lovely pictures of sunlight streaming from behind dark clouds. We listen to gurus and sants and yogis and scriptures every morning. Moreover, the word lecture, if you use it as a Hindi word, it has a very negative connotation. Because when we tell our friends, please, mujhe lecture mat do, it's really not a very positive thing. So I do apologize. I have no music. I have no sunlight streaming from behind my head. I have no wonderful quotations. And I'm so sorry. I only have a lecture. And moreover, I'm really very unsure of what life gyan I, a school teacher, can give to all of you this morning. But because I'm here in an institution of higher learning for women, it's natural to speak of the role of education in the lives of us women. So when I look back at the 7 decades of my life, one thing I can clearly see is that we do not have control of what life throws at us. We're just a small dot at the center of our environment, and there are many factors beyond our control. For instance, for starters, we cannot control our genetic lottery. It is like a hand of cards which is dealt to us. Our parents, our family, our physical self, our basic nature, in fact, even our childhood. All this we are simply born into. But then we begin to grow, and then we begin to develop. And actually, and all the young ladies here, I want to say there comes one point. There comes one point in our growth when we can start influencing ourselves. And that is the point, which is the real beginning of the rest of our lives. Because it's when we influence ourselves that our life starts. And if we are lucky, like I was lucky, to get a really good education, a little bit around this point of our lives, when we start influencing ourselves, then we have control over some of what goes ahead. I lost my father when I was about 16 and a half. And we hit a terrible financial time. We were just two sisters and my mother, who Dr. Das spoke of. And like I said, the only riches we had was her education. So thanks to her education, she educated me and she educated my sister. We were lucky at that point of time when we were 15, 16, 17, we got a really good education and we went ahead to make our lives. And that's what I mean when we talk of the role of education in the lives of women. We didn't have a brother, we didn't have a father, but it didn't make a difference. We had education. Can we even imagine the situation of young people, especially girls, who do not have this privilege? You know, psychologists, and I was reading up a lot about this, they say that the most excruciating state of mind is the state of vulnerability, of feeling vulnerable. Those who do not have a sense of self-worth feel vulnerable throughout their lives, and they're haunted by it. Imagine going through life with this vulnerability haunting you, of being less than others, of being led by others. But education is the one factor which gives us this sense of worth. It gives us the strength and the confidence to speak up for ourselves and to think for ourselves. So here are two words, strength and power. When I was thinking of what to say to you all today, these two words came to my mind. So what is strength and what is power? Strength is an internal quality. It's an inner toughness. It's an inner resilience. Power is a measure of control over others and of outside life. So there's a difference. And if you go to a gym and you say, I want strength training, they'll put you through something else. But if you say, I want power training, you get put through something completely different. The gym instructors have identified it very well, and I got a definition from a gym instructor. Strength is the sustained force required to overcome resistance. Power is the force required to do a task effectively at a specific period of time. And education becomes our strength, which gives us power when we need it. So this was a great thing I learned from the world of physical endurance. It also gives us true freedom. To be qualified, to be able to depend on oneself is a very liberating thing. Our former president, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Azad, gave a very unique formula of education, different from anything I had read by anybody else. And you will also understand why it's so different. He said, and being a scientist speaking formally, knowledge, he said, is equal to creativity plus courage plus righteousness. They're very significant words, but they're very strange words. So let me try and deconstruct them for you. Righteousness, courage, creativity. So the website of the Awadh Girls Degree College defines the aim of the college as value-based education. Dr. Abdul Kalam felt that the value of righteousness, and he didn't say justice, he said righteousness, righteousness means doing that which is ethically, morally correct. So he says that the value of righteousness is what can bring peace and stability to people, to families, to communities, and to society. So he really felt this was important. And he deemed this sense of right and wrong as the most important component of really good education. For what use is learning if it is not supported by ethics? And many of us, especially the teachers here, you will have heard of that letter which was written by a survivor of the Holocaust at the end of the Second World War, when he said, "I don't trust education because those who perpetrated the cruelest crimes on the Jews during the Holocaust were the best scientists, were the best engineers, and the best doctors." So I think that the fact that Dr. Kalam put righteousness as the very first thing, education has to be hand in hand with ethics. The second word he stressed on was creativity. Now, he didn't mean that it teaches you how to sing and dance and paint. And I would like to take creativity as something way more profound. And I am sharing with you and suggesting that education gives us the freedom to create our own learning. It gives us the freedom to create our own choices, to create our own goals. In short, it gives us the ability to create ourselves. The better the education, the greater our freedom to be creative about generating our own knowledge. And girls, you've got to try and understand this. Create yourselves through your education. The third word that Dr. Kalam focused on was courage. What a marvelous word. It comes from the root word cor, which means heart. Cœur in French, in Latin, cor is heart, and from cor we get courage. It is defined as the quality of mind which enables one to meet trouble and danger without fear. How right Dr. Kalam was when he said that knowledge gives us the heart and the guts to carry on and face challenges in life. Mrs. Tehrim Das invested in education as a cause, particularly women's education. It is no wonder that she passed this on to her own children and to the young people she came in contact with, because she understood this power of education. By and large, women have a great deal of an inner strength. They have demonstrated it across the world in very challenging social environments. Sadly, however, this strength very often has been equated with the ability to endure rather than with the ability to influence. So just because you can endure something does not mean you're strong. Maybe it means you're strong, but it does not mean you are empowered till you can influence. Not every girl or woman has access to the knowledge that can empower her in this big social context. And we cannot take this education for granted. So I was working with a group which is in fact located in Hyderabad, which did a study on the effect of the pandemic on women's education. And it showed through the statistics and the data, particularly in semi-urban and rural areas, that all the girls got pulled out of school and out of college because they did not have access to the gadgets for online learning. However, the percentage of boys was very different because families were quite happy to give them the gadgets and give them the means of continuing their learning. However, the reverse was also revealed. The number of healthcare workers during the pandemic was largely the girls and the women. So this is a skewed uh, statistic, but it has a story there, the story of our country. So women shoulder multiple responsibilities, both inside and outside their homes, and they show much more resilience to change. But very often they can't use their full potential either for their own future or for the future of their families Do you know that during the early years of space travel, NASA conducted studies on the suitability of women as astronauts? They found that women consumed less, they wasted much less, they were better able to work in confined spaces without getting stressed, much better than the men. And they handle the controls better. But 90% of astronauts are men. In the Mangalyaan mission, the success of the calculations for both the accuracy of the orbit as well as for completing the mission at an unbelievably low cost was directly attributable to the marvelous ladies working on that mission. So women are natural MBAs. They handle their homes, they handle their families, they can work within budgets, they handle the different personalities from in-laws to children. They manage time, they manage resources, and they save for the future. Girls value education and they study pretty hard if they're just given half a chance. Plus, women develop skills as they go along and they use them on a daily basis. And I saw on the AGTC website the large number of clubs and extracurricular activities that your college encourages. And I was really heartened to read that at least two are compulsory and the rest are optional. There are lots of options. So this ensures a balance of skills and knowledge. So if one looks at it, both in Western and in Indian cultures, the repositories of knowledge and of skills are goddesses, not gods. The symbols of power and energy are also goddesses, not rather than the gods. So in classical Greek mythology, for instance, you have these 9 beautiful muses. And if I read out the subjects that they're supposed to be the muses of, that speaks for itself. They are the inspiration for poetry, music, history, drama, agriculture, dance, geometry, astronomy, and rhetoric, the power of speech. If this is contained in women, it can tell you how wide is the huge hoard of knowledge that they're supposed to represent, and also how focused on the skills. The goddess of learning in Western classical mythology is Minerva. She is the repository of knowledge. Now, in Indian mythology too, we have Saraswati, the goddess of learning and knowledge and wisdom. It is quite fascinating that traditionally no temple is built for Saraswati. We find temples for Durga, Lakshmi, Devi, but not Saraswati, because she is not bound to any one spot. She is symbolically depicted as one who flies across spaces on her swan, Hansavahini, right? Bringing knowledge and wisdom wherever she stops for a while. Saraswati is worshipped only through the process of learning. And wherever there's a student who is engaged in the pursuit of knowledge and wisdom, that spot becomes her temple, her Vidya Mandir. I find it fascinating when I started thinking about this, that mobility and the power of access is connected with the concept of learning and knowledge and wisdom, because knowledge cannot be confined. Wherever women have been denied access to the wider world, where they have been restricted or cloistered, they have remained vulnerable and powerless, irrespective of their economic status. Where this has happened, the social fabric has also declined. There's a common phrase in Hindi, आजकल लड़कियां बाहर निकल रही हैं. Everyone says लड़कियां बाहर निकल रही हैं to gain knowledge, बाहर निकलना पड़ता है. One has to step out, and that is the first step. I have seen this really brilliantly demonstrated in the Him Jyoti school that I have been working with. All our girls come from the villages of Uttarakhand, very remote places, places in Pithoragarh, which really are on the border of Nepal and China and places like that. They come to Dehradun, that is their first step out, because they stepped out from their environment. And then we try and bring the rest of the world to them and take them out as much as possible. So obviously, this access and this mobility is what makes them different. And I know Dr. Das and I were both collectively counseling one girl who comes from one such village. Last year, we helped her. She got in on a 100% scholarship to Ashoka University to study physics, and now she's doing astronomy. And it is remarkable. She got in touch with me about a week ago, saying, "Man, do you know, not far from my village is the first international liquid reflective telescope of the world." If she had continued to live in her little village near Nainital, beyond Nainital actually, would she even have known that within access of her village was such a mind-blowing scientific facility, which scientists from the world over are coming to. So I actually believe that this whole business of access and mobility it's a tool that society sometimes badly uses to control those who they do not want educated well, keep them in. So my firm belief personally is step out. And I'd like to link this here with the freedom that technology can give to girls, because today the practical use of technology is stepping out into the world. It's the window. Sitting at home, you can book tickets, you can manage your money online, you can learn new skills, you can learn a new language. This girl I was talking about, who is now at Ashoka, decided to teach herself Korean, and she learned it. And during her interview, she just proved how much she knew. It's remarkable again that from a little village, here was someone who could teach us about Korea, including, by the way, about their pop music and what she didn't like in their pop music and what a bibimbap is. So right up to cuisine. So I believe here, if we wish to empower young people, we must educate them and expose them to the joy and wonder of going much beyond TikTok or Bollywood or dance competitions or Swiggy. Responsible and empowering netizenship training is really the need of the hour. So going back to the college website, I saw how career counseling is an integral part of the lives of the students here. The syncretic relationship between acquiring knowledge and then putting it to full and proper use lies in counseling. I link this too with Mrs. Tehrim Das's far-sighted vision. She recognized this need almost 40 years ago, and she encouraged her daughter to start the Institute for Career Studies. I remember attending a session by Dr. Amrita Das in the mid-1980s for our students in Dehradun. It was a new experience for the students and for us younger teachers. When the session was over, we were left with a sense of the vastness of the world, including the world of opportunity that lay beyond the school walls. Back in the 80s and 90s, it was the role of the teacher to bring the world into the classroom. Today, dear teachers, the challenge is in helping the students to sift out what to keep out. And we should think about this. Right in the end, because lectures must come to an end, I would like to share a concern which has been in my mind a lot of late. Today, I have been speaking only of the empowering role of education in the lives of girls and women. And when I Googled the word empowerment, I found a significant comment by none other than Karl Marx, you know, the founder of Marxism. But he was also an avowed feminist. And I want to share those words because they really got me thinking. So I'm quoting. In the field of citizenship education and democratic education, empowerment is seen as a tool to increase the responsibility of a citizen. It's a key concept of civic management. So clearly, citizenship education will work only if it empowers both boys and girls to take on social and civic responsibility together as democratic citizens. And that made me link this thought with what we read on every bus and public conveyance system. Beti padhao, beti bachao. बचाओ पढ़ाने से बचाना पड़ेगा किस से हम बचाते हैं बेटियों को who do we need to save our girls from what do we need to save our girls from today I believe the time has come to empower our boys there are more than and now we are overtaken China in our population it's this week's headline and I got this data yesterday. We have more than 22 million boys in India in the single one age group of 17 years. That is the same 17 I was when I really needed guidance. And I was thinking, here are these 22 million boys. It is our boys who need the right role models, calling out to them from every headline, every film and advertisement, every government hoarding, and every corporate initiative for skilling and sensitization. The status of women will not improve by asking women to fight, to save themselves, bachao themselves from social systems. It will improve by teaching the boys to move from the vocabulary of power and privilege to the vocabulary of cooperation and care. To empower our boys, we need to give them soft skills education, more self-esteem. Our newspaper headlines keep saying, लड़कियों ने अच्छा किया, CBSE exam में, फलानी जगह ने लड़कियां. Can you imagine the effect of this on the boys? So I think empowerment, first of all, starts off with good sense of self-esteem. I believe, and here's the message for all of us, that women have a very big role to play. As teachers, you do know that almost every primary school teacher in India is a woman and not a man. So teachers, as mothers, as wives, as daughters, and as sisters. My closing words are for the students of the Awadh Girls Degree College. And girls, I borrowed them from an anonymous writer. They're not my own, but they're lovely. A strong woman stands up for herself, but a stronger woman stands up for everybody else. These words remind us of Mrs. Tehrim Das, and I hope that they resonate with all you strong girls sitting here today, and may they resonate with you throughout your lives as they did through hers. God bless you all with the knowledge that will lead you to courage, to creativity, and a sense of ethics and justice. Thank you so much.
Okay, so we'll now take some questions from the students. Can we have a microphone? This is the opportunity for all of you to ask your questions. Yes. Give us your name, class.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Alina.
Say that again.
Good afternoon, ma'am. My name is Alina Siddiqui. I'm
Okay.
from BA, not semester 2, I believe now. Ma'am, I wanted to ask, what is something a child of today's age should, ma'am, I don't want to say a woman or a man because a child,
Child.
yeah, that right. A child of today's age should keep of importance except education, because education is definitely number one of importance. But some value, some lesson that you have learned that you would want to share, which should be of importance for a child of today's age.
Okay, thanks for that question, Arena. I tried to kind of indirectly touch upon it. Please do sit down, don't remain standing. Please. I tried to touch upon it very, very indirectly through the life of Mrs. Tehrim Das. Because education is not what you get in your classroom or in your books. Everything's education. So when you keep in mind, I think what one needs to really keep in mind, the world today is using a lot of language and jargon. I mean, we people in the education sector, sometimes we can sound very important if we use the jargon. But I don't think that's important. We need to just talk straight. I actually think what we need to keep in mind is getting a lot of knowledge, but also keeping your mind strongly on what you're going to do with it. And I think there we need to underline it with that we've got to do something which is not just for ourselves. And why I think today's young people, because your question started with that, today's young people, by and large, the narrative out there in the world is nobody else is going to look after you, you have to look after yourself. Forget this. Forget it. I don't know if you all have heard of a writer called Yuval Noah Harari. I mean, you might have heard of the book called Sapiens. But if you listen to him speak and you read a little beyond, one unique thing that he says, Arina, is that why is the human species so much ahead of any other species? And you know what he brought it down to? The fact that we can collaborate. None of the other species can do that. So we use learning and knowledge from everywhere. This morning I was talking to Dr. Amrita Das. This is just a case in point. My sister is an eye surgeon, the same sister I mentioned a little earlier. Now she was telling me, she says, we can't do a thing as eye surgeons without those geniuses there doing physics because they make that implant which the body doesn't reject, which is microscopic. They make me my surgical knife so that I can use it without having to stitch an eye. And I think this transference of knowledge and the great gift of language that the human species has allows us to collaborate. And if we are one member of that species, we do not live for ourselves. So if we keep this in mind and keep collecting all this knowledge and sharing it and using it and asking for more, I think that makes us a good student throughout our lives.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. Ma'am, my name is Azmi Fatima. I am studying psychology and English, and I'm in semester 5. And thank you so much for the inspiring speech, ma'am. I wanted to ask that what is the main virtue or main lesson which is very vital for the women of our generation, and you think that they should practice it more, that they are lacking, and they should practice it more?
It's a tough question because there's no one kind of woman. And women of our generation are of so many types, and we are all stuck in so many different situations and environment. Frankly, there's no one virtue. The virtue of being a darn good, strong, powerful woman will take us through everything, right? And I don't think it's going to be one virtue. Certainly, I think equipping ourselves is the biggest thing we can do. So, in every possible way, we equip ourselves with learning more, we equip ourselves with being able to do more, learning new skills. And this collective virtue of being a strong woman is all we need. And I'm not saying a strong person, I'm saying a strong woman because women are different. Women are special. There's certain things only women can do which men can't. And I think this again and again, I come back to my belief of collaboration. If we can collaborate well with the men folk correctly, and even teach them, teach all our men to collaborate with us, there's nothing stopping anyone. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, ma'am. My name is Zarya Fatima. I am of BA semester 3. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude for the wonderful life lesson that you showered upon us today.
Thank you.
And now my question for you today is that what are some general positive and negative attitudes do you think women of your times had and women of today have?
Yeah, okay. So that's a great question. I can certainly tell you about the women of my time. So we had two kinds of women in my time, I think, and I have some contemporaries sitting here, and I think they'll bear me out. We either had those who were submitting or those who were fighting. And I think that was really bad because either you have to totally submit or you have to really go and fight. I think today's women have it a little better. They don't need to submit so much, they don't need to fight so much, they can find the proper balances. And I think that is, according to me, that if you can win over the world through being sensible, logical, kind, and compassionate without having to fight, and yet finding those balances. Uh, I remember discussing with Dr. Das, and something which I've sort of touched on today is that there's a very fine line, like a very fine line between empowerment and being powerful. So, if we can be empowering the women and empowered women, we are okay. But if you start trying to overpower, it's a bit of a losing battle. So I think all of you girls, you're equipped, you're here in this wonderful institution. You've got the tools with which to be empowered and then how to empower everybody else. And I think you'll do a great job of it. And God bless you.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
My name is Anvesha. I am in BA semester 2nd. And as careful as we get now and then, we get to know several steps that we can take to empower women. But what are some concrete steps that we can take in the advancement of empowerment? Or, as you mentioned right now, there's a very fine line between empowerment and being powered. What are some concrete steps that one, maybe I or you, can take to feel powered?
Okay, so you're already taken them, if you ask me. You're already studying, right? That's the first step. If you have a correct sense of values and a consideration for your environment and the larger world, you've already taken that step to being an empowered person. And you don't need to start defining it or putting down mantras. It's very fashionable nowadays to have these mantras which are all rhyming and they sort of the three C's and the four L's. And no, I'm not saying that. I actually think that you're already on the same kind of line. You're taking the concrete steps, and you will be the balanced kind of woman who will be able to manage it. And you'll be empowered. Learning is one, compassion is the other, and being sensible is the third. So I think if you just develop these three aspects, you're fine. You're really absolutely okay.
Any other question? Thank you very much. So it's wonderful that you told them all to negotiate for their space.
Absolutely. It's the only thing that works.
That works.
Thank you once again.
Thank you, Mrs. Jyotsna Brad. I would now like to invite Professor Beena Rai, Principal of the College, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Good afternoon, you all. This is a memorable day in our college as we conclude the Tehrim Das Memorial Lecture. Tehrim Das, a woman who dedicated, devoted for the development and smile for a woman and society. 1935, before independence, she born. And when she died, world was young. 21st century world was young and entering in teenage life. उन्होंने सिखाया कि महिला होना कोई कमी नहीं, कोई कमजोरी नहीं। एक बार अगर आप ठान लीजिए तो आप समाज को, अपने सभी को बदल सकते हैं। बस मन में जज्बा होना चाहिए। उनके लिए मेरी तरफ से ढेर सारा नमन और श्रद्धांजलि। On behalf of our college, I would like to propose vote of thanks to our guest. Therefore, I want to extend our warm regards and heartfelt gratitude to our chief guest and speaker of the day, Mrs. Jyotsna Barar, Chief Education Consultant, and former principal, Welham Girls College. Thank you, ma'am. Really, women are special. We are special. And आपने ये बताया कि what is education is. Really, education means to strength and get power. I will show we all are benefit for her thoughts and opinions. My sincere and heartfelt thanks to Ms. Zareen Vikarji, President, Management Committee, Awadh Girls Degree College, Professor Nishi Pandey, Eminent Professor, Department of English, University of Lucknow, and Managing Secretary, Management, Awadh Girls Degree College, for your valuable guidance and unconditional support. I really grateful to my thanks to Mrs. Bulbul Godiar, Member, Management Committee, Mrs. Reddy, Member, Awadh Educational Society, Dr. Noor Khan, Member, Awadh Management Committee, Dr. Amrita Das, Founder Director, Institute for Career Studies, Mrs. Kavita Das, Director, Institute for Career Studies, Mr. Ajit Das, Director, Operation, Institute for Career Studies. आप लोग हम लोगों के लिए एक साल में एक इतना अच्छा सा लेक्चर्स, इतना अच्छा सा ज्ञानवर्धक, नॉलेजेबल पर्सन्स को बुलाते हैं और रियली हम लोगों को बहुत अच्छा लगता है। हमें लगता है हमारा आज का दिन बहुत ही अच्छा बीता, हमने कुछ सीखा, हमने कुछ समझा और खास करके महिलाएं, लड़कियां जो इस समाज को बदलना चाहती हैं, खुद को बदलना चाहती हैं। थैंक यू ऑल। इट गिव्स me immense pleasure to extending our heartfelt appreciation to each one of our gracing this event with your presence. Your enthusiastic participation has made this event a memorable one. Our grateful thanks to the Institute for Career Studies for support sponsoring the memorial lecture and the refreshments, the media personnel for covering the event, the photographers. Last but not the least, I would like to thank Team ICS, the organizing team of our college, faculty members, admin staff, and students for making this event a beautiful and successful. I also cannot overlook the efforts of our support staff who worked hard for this event. Thank you all.
I would now like to invite Ms. Kavita Das to propose a vote of thanks on behalf of the Institute for Career Studies.
Our esteemed chief guest, Mrs. Jyotsna Brar, Ms. Zareen Vikarji, Professor Nishi Pandey, Professor Beena Rai, the AGDC Management Committee, honored guests, members of the Institute for Career Studies, faculty, staff, and students of our Girls Degree College, and media persons. On behalf of the Institute for Career Studies, It is my privilege to propose a vote of thanks as we conclude this memorial lecture. It is an honor for ICS to collaborate with AGDC and sponsor the annual Tehrim Das Memorial Lecture. It gives me immense pleasure in extending our heartfelt gratitude to each one of you in this August audience for gracing this event with your presence. Your participation has made this event a memorable one. Our grateful thanks to Mrs. Jyotsna Brar for taking time out from her busy schedule in delivering this inspiring talk and giving us words of wisdom. As a token of our appreciation, we are delighted to present a chicken stole specially designed by Vita Das. I would request Mr. Ajit Das to kindly drape it around. We also take this opportunity of expressing our grateful thanks to Ms. Zareen Vikarji, Professor Nishi Pandey, and Professor Beena Rai for their unstinting support, and we present them with a flowering shrub as a token of our appreciation. I would especially like to acknowledge Ms. Pooja Ahuja, General Manager and Senior Career Counselor, ICS, for her creative work in designing the cards, backdrops, and standees each year. Would like to thank Mr. Deepak Bajaj for his expertise in printing the backdrop and standees, and the media persons for being present here. Last but not least, I would like to place on record our earnest appreciation to all the members of Team ICS and AGDC for their invaluable contribution in the planning and execution of this event. We now cordially invite our honored guests and faculty members to join us for refreshments at the library. Thank you.